Thank you so much for joining us today on Hmong Unabridged, where we have discussions about what it's like growing up Hmong in the United States of America. I am your host, Shaw.
And I am your co-host, Panya. We are still going to go through our Hmong folklore stories, either Hmong folklore or our South Asian folklore stories. And especially today, we're going to jump into the longer epic stories. So we're going to do one story at a time per episode. In some cases, we'll have to divide those stories into multiple episodes, but I hope you'll enjoy these epics so much more than the short ones that we've been sharing. So I will be the one to start out with our epics today. And before I start out with our story, I actually want for us to remember these specific names because I think they're very interesting. So there are 3 characters in this story, and the first name is Nu Jing, and the second name is Nu Shong No Si, and the third name is Nza Mo Jia. Each name carries a special meaning that reflects the aspects of their character. And this is what I discovered through some of my research, because when I asked mom and dad about the meaning of their names, they just say they don't really know. It was just something that the elders have been saying for the longest time. But because I was just curious, I just went in and searched and trying to see if I can interpret their names to have a specific meaning. And this is what I found out. So for Nu Jing, the first word is nu, so it means to have or to possess, or it can also mean new or baby. And then the second part of his name, which is Jing, means clever, smart, or wise. Nu Jing can be seen as a child who possesses wisdom or someone born with a sharp mind or early intelligence. Now the second name has 4 words to it. It is Nu Shong No Si. And the first word is to have or possess, a new or a baby. And then the second word is shong, which it can mean joyful or good, or it can also mean a kind of plant or shrub. And then the third word is no, which can be a bird, or to listen, or to be happy and peaceful. And then the last word of her name is si. It can mean the right position, or serene or quiet. So her name has multiple meanings. It can mean a joyful and serene child, or a baby as gentle and free as a bird, or metaphorically, someone who blooms like a rare plant. Because interestingly, in parts of South Asia, including Thailand, Burma, and India, there is a stunning flower called the parrot flower, known for its blossoms that resembles birds. So it's possible that her name was inspired by that imagery symbolizing some rare, delicate, and beautiful flower or bird. And then the last name in our story is Nza Mo Jia. The name Zhe means youngest sibling, and they're often the most cherished or delicate one. And the second word in her name is Mo, meaning to be in pain or ill. And then the third word is Jia. And in this story, it is referring to a goiter, which is an enlargement of the thyroid gland that creates a visible swelling on the neck. So her name can be understood as a delicate or beloved child who suffers from an illness, possibly referencing someone with a visible condition like a goiter, and perhaps speaking to vulnerability or hardship. These are the 3 characters that we'll be listening to today. So let's go ahead and start our story. Once upon a time, there lived a very talented and handsome man called Nu Jing. He was in love with a young woman called Nu Shong No Si. They had discussed and decided they were going to get married after the New Year celebration. Their New Year celebration is a 3-day celebration. And so the day came when New Year started, and Nu Jing was going to meet Nu Shong No Si at the New Year's to enjoy the festivities together. On the first day of the celebration, early in the morning, when even the staff weren't even there at the celebration field, a young, mysterious woman stood in the middle of the field waiting, and her name was Nza Mo Jia. Then she heard someone playing a flute, or a woodwind instrument, and it was Nu Jing. He was the second one on the field that day. He blew the instrument and walked around the field 3 times, making the young woman's heart flutter. As Nu Jing finishes his song, a ball is thrown at him, and he catches it. And he heard a voice saying, "Dearest brother, come ball toss with me." Now, if you don't know what ball tossing is, it's a way to court a lady. They will toss a ball back and forth and they will flirt with each other. So Nützing looked up and saw a pretty woman. However, what he saw next was a big goiter on her neck. And he thought, where is Nushongnosi? Well, I have to ball toss with this lady who has a goiter? But being a kind young man, he decided to ball toss with her as he waited for his love. Minutes passed into hours, and the celebration field started to be filled with crowds. And the morning turned into noon, and noon turned into night, and Nützing had been ball tossing with Zamatsiat the whole day. Then Nushognosi's friends finally saw them as they were about to head home for the day. And then they gathered around him saying, "Oh, Nützing, we were having so much fun ball tossing that we had forgotten to tell you. Nushongnosi was so busy preparing her clothes for your wedding so that she wasn't able to come meet you today, but she will be there tomorrow." And so Nützing left right before Zamatsiya asked to ball toss with him again tomorrow. And he smiled lightly and said, "Sure, I will ball toss with you again tomorrow." The next day, as Nützing looked for Nushongnosi at the New Year's, someone threw a ball at him and once again said, "Dearest brother, ball toss with me." Again, it was Zamatsiya. He thought, "Oh, great. Now I'll have to ball toss with this Goiter girl again." But with a big smile, he ball tossed with her. And again, the morning turned into noon, and noon into night. Before Nützing left for home, Zamatsiya asked again, "Shall we ball toss again tomorrow, dearest brother?" Nützing smiled and replied, "Yes, let's ball toss again." So she left with the biggest smile on her face. Nützing then met Nushognosi's friends at the end of the day, and they once again said, "Oh, Nützing, we totally forgot we were having so much fun ball tossing that we forgot to tell you. Nushongnosi was so busy beautifying herself for your wedding, but she will see you early in the morning tomorrow to end the New Year's." On the third day of the New Year, Zamatsiya was so excited to ball toss again with Nützing that she came extra early that day. But as she waited, Nützing met Nushongnosi at the crossroads early in the morning, and they went and they left to get married. So Zamatsiya waited and waited, and she wouldn't ball toss with anyone but Nützing. When the New Year celebration finally came to a close, she saw Nushognosi's friends and asked them if they knew where Nützing was. Then they told her, "Oh, didn't you know? Nützing met Nushognosi at the crossroads early this morning, and they left to get married." Zamatsiya was so heartbroken that she left, and she turned herself into a white dove to go searching for Nützing. Now, for a while, Nützing and Nushognosi lived peacefully and already have a small son that Nushognosi would carry around the house on her back. And one day, Nützing decided to take his cow to the field to feed as he usually did. So he left that day early and stayed in the field all day long. As the sun hit the highest part of the sky, he guided his cow to the grassy fields and allowed him to eat some grass while he sat under a tree. Then he started sighing. He sighed and then he said, "When the cow is hungry, it may graze. But when Nützing is hungry, Nushongnosi doesn't know. At home, Nushongnosi stays." Then, thinking to himself, he said he would go home. And the moment he raised his head from the shadow of the trees, he saw a beautiful white dove fall from the branches of the tree, its neck hanging with a beautiful silver string. "Oh, this beautiful bird," he said to himself. "Why did you hang yourself? You are such a beautiful bird. You must be a great person. And to die like this," he sighed again. And because the bird was so beautiful, he took pity on it and brought the white dove down and laid a grave for it. As he laid the bird to rest, he started playing his flute instrument. And as he played, he became sad. And as he became sad, his tears would not stop falling. When he finally got home, he told Nushognosi, "I saw a beautiful white dove today. It was so beautiful. But then It hung itself on the branches and it died. So I placed it to rest on a small plot of land. And as I played my woodwind instrument, I started getting so sad, and then tears fell from my eyes. Nushongnosi hushed her husband. She said, Nutse, don't speak of that, or someone may hear you. So she forbade her husband from ever talking about that dove again. Now, one day, as Nutsing was sitting at his front porch tending to his cows, he saw two beautiful butterflies flying far from the west, and they gently fluttered together towards the southern end of the village. They fell flat onto the ground and then turned into two handsome young men. Then they walked toward Nutsing's house and saw him. They asked him, Brother, do you know where Nutsing's house is? And as Nutsing was about to speak, his wife came out and she said, Oh, if you are looking for Nutsing's house, his house is the big house at the north side of the village. So the two brothers headed to the big house of the north of the village. When they arrived at the house, they asked, We are looking for Nutsing, and we were told that his house is this big house on the north side of the village. Is he home? And the owner of the house replied, Oh, you are here to meet Nutsing? You are at the wrong house. I am the northern village chief. His house is the one in the middle of the village. And so the two men left again towards Nutsing's house. When they got to his house again, they asked, Well, we went to the big house at the north of the village, and the owner said that Nutsing's house is this one. Is he home? And once again, Nushongnusi came out of the house before Nutsing could say anything. And she said, Oh, they have lied to you. Nutsing's house is the big house at the southern end of the village. So the two men started walking towards the big house at the southern end of the village. When they got to the house, they asked, We were told that Nutsing lives here. Is he home? Again, the owner of this house says, Oh, you are looking for Nutsing? He does not live here. I am the southern chief of the village. His house is the one in the center of the village. And again, the two men walked back to Nutsing's house. So during that time, if you don't know, the village will have two chiefs. So they'll have one chief at the north side of the village, and then they'll have another chief on the south side of the village. So these are the two houses that they were going to. And so when they got back to Nutsing's house, again they asked, Oh, brother, when we were at the northern house, they told us it was the central house. And when we got to the southern house, they also told us that Nutsing's house was the central house. Can you please tell us which is brother Nutsing's house? And at this time, Nushongnosi did not come out of the house, as she didn't realize they were back. And Nutsing said lightly, Oh, this is truly Nutsing's house, and I am indeed he. What is it that you two are looking for? So the two men were delighted, and they said, Oh, our father, he heard news that our dearest younger sister had died, so he had instructed us to go see her and bring her back to life. As they finished talking, Nushongnosi came out of the house, and she rolled her eyes at Nutsing, signaling him not to tell them. So he answered, Oh, I have not seen your dearest younger sister. However, one of the brothers already saw Nushognosi's signal and said, Well, your wife rolled her eyes, saying that you did indeed see our sister. So Nutsing then answered, well, I did not see your sister, but I did see a white dove with a silver string that died on a branch in the cow field. And the two brothers exclaimed, Oh, that is indeed our sister. Please take us to her. And so Nutsing took them to the burial site. He pointed at the bed of dirt and said, This is where I buried your sister. So the brothers dig up the dove, and by now the dove has already stiffened and dried out. And then the brothers took out a water bottle that was made out of leaf. And in the story, they called this leafy water bottle a kulu. And so they spoke to the bottle and they said, Kulu, bring your sister back to life, Kulu. And then poured some water out of the bottle onto the dove. Then the white dove suddenly turned into a pale young woman wearing a white dress. And again the brothers spoke to the leafy bottle, Kulu, oh Kulu, won't you raise our sister back to life? And then poured the water onto the pale woman. from her head all the way to her feet. And so blood started to rush back into her face and her hands and her feet. And then Nutsing thought to himself, dear sister, could this be this Nzamotsia girl? What am I going to do if it is? And then again, the brother says, Kulu, oh Kulu, raise our dear sister back to life, Kulu, and poured the water on the girl. And suddenly she awoke and stood up, and oh goodness, she was indeed Nzamotsia. As she rose, she gave the biggest smile to Nutsing and walked towards him. Her brothers cried out, dear sister, let's go home. And she said, oh, you guys go on ahead. I'll follow in a little bit. So her brothers flew back into the sky. Nzamotsia looked at Nutsing and said, Nutsing, are you going to marry me or not? And Nutsing answered, no, I'm already married to Nushongnosi. But then she grabbed his arms and said, whether you want to marry me or not, I will forcefully take you with me, and forced him into the sky with her and caught up with her brothers. As they flew, they got closer to Nutsing's house, and Nutsing called out to his wife who was still inside the house, and he said, Nushongnosi, if you don't come out, Nzamotsia has taken me. So Nushongnosi came out, but instead of going towards the front porch, she headed towards the back porch and didn't see him. Then Nzamotsia's two brothers threw down a banana branch that transformed into Nutsing, and it fell in front of her as though he were dead. And Nzamotsia was able to take Nutsing home with her to be her husband. The next morning, as Nzamotsia held tightly onto Nutsing's arms, her mother, the queen of the sky, said to her daughter, Daughter, you brought Nutsing here, and yet you won't go look for water to wash his face. How is he going to live with you? And Nzamotsia answered, oh, he is so handsome. No matter which way I look, he is handsome. I just can't leave him. Besides, if I leave, he might wander towards the back of the house and look into the water jar. All right, the queen replied. You brought someone here with you, and you refused to bring him water, and you refused to bring him food. He will surely be able to live with you. So then Nzamotsia finally relented and said to Nutsing, okay then, you stay here. I will go find some water for you to wash your face. So as she left to go to find water, Nutsing wandered to the back of the house and looked through the water jar, and saw that on earth they were preparing a funeral for the banana branch that the brothers had thrown down. He was so sad that he closed the water jar and went back to sit down. The next day, he did the same thing. He looked down into the water jar and saw the funeral activity. And again, he felt so sad that he went back to sit in front of the house. Now, as the third day came, he looked again and saw that the people had already brought the banana branch to the field to be buried. And so he told Nzamotsia, if you will allow me to, I want to play my flute for you so that you can listen. And she looked at him and she said, go ahead, I would love to listen to you play your flute. So Nutsing blew his instrument, and it goes like this. I'm going to say it in Hmong first because I want to pay respect to this poem that he is about to say, and then I will translate it to English. So in Hmong, his poem goes as he plays flute. It says, Nutsing to, oya, hyona e nong lia zeng nong lu ga. Giờ mất xe yo to zeng nu zeng đợi nu shong nu si chan bom ba. Ôi ya hiong no e nong lia zeng nong lu jay. Giờ mất xe yo to zeng nu zeng đợi nu shong nu si te. Nu ti zeng giờ mất xe nu ti zeng ji san jia. Giờ luon yo nu ti zeng ji sai yo. Giờ mất xe ton xe nu zeng te ya ga. Giờ nu zeng yon zeng giờ mất xe đại khó là ga. Giờ mất xe ton xe nu zeng te ya jay. Giờ nu zeng yon zeng giờ mất xe đại khó jay. Giờ yo tao. And so this is what it means in English. I tried to translate it to the best of my abilities while still keeping the rhyming scheme. So it says, alas, alas, I am dead, I am dead. This year the field bird stole the small bird's worm. She has stolen me from my lover's arms. This year the field bird stole the small bird's nest. She has stolen me from my lover's grasp. Oh me, oh my, this lady I do not wish to see. She spun a binding thread I do not wish to wed. She tricked me with her false insect calls. So I'll trick her and snare her in the trench of the wall. She deceived me into becoming my bride. So I'll deceive and trap her in the ditch where she resides. Then it will pass, it will pass. So as Hanzamatsu listened intently to the sound of the instrument, she did not notice that Nutseng jumped into the water jar. When the instrument stopped making a sound, she finally turned to him, and he was already gone. He then floated back down to earth and landed in front of his house. So as the villagers were coming back from the burial site, Nushongnusi was in the house crying in the dark. Then he said, Nushongnusi, don't cry, I am back. And she answered, don't come lie to me like that. My husband is already dead. Oh, how am I dead? Nutseng replied. If you don't believe me, look up and see me. So she looked up and saw him, and she ran and she hugged him. And they began to cry out of happiness and returned to their life and lived happily ever after. The end. I actually feel kind of bad for Zamotsiana because I feel like he led her on. I feel like it was his fault in the beginning because he was like, ball tossing with her, and I'm sure they were like probably flirting and talking the whole day. He kind of led her on, and she was just so happy until the end where it's like, oh, he actually didn't like me, and he went and got married, and that's how all of this happened.
I felt like it was one of those where he just he used her as like the replacement to wait for his actual girlfriend instead of just telling her, hey, I'm busy. Would it be his fault though? Because you can't ball toss with anybody unless he made a promise to her like, hey, you're my girlfriend. And she was just so infatuated with him.
During that time, right? This is when a lot of the young men and women would get married. Hmong people, they don't have we're gonna date for like 3 years and then get married, because they'll be like at the garden, they'll do all their chores, and then during the New Year's is the only time when they can go actually meet people. And this is where a lot of them will go and they'll ball toss and they'll flirt, and then they like each other so much they're like, okay, let's just go get married right now, even though we've only known each other for like a day. This happens a lot back then. So I would see that, okay, she as a young woman during that time was probably like, oh, I've talked to this guy for the past 2 days now. Maybe we'll be getting married at the end of the New Year's. And that didn't happen.
Nutseng was already in love with Nushongnusi, and they have already been courting, because there's another way of courting back then. And it was the guy would visit the lady's house at night and like poke her wall and say, hey, are you asleep? And they would have conversations through the walls, and that's how they would court. And then there's the other way of meeting new people by asking them to, hey, ball toss with them. But in this instance, it seems like Nushongnusi and Nutseng were already an item, and he was just waiting for her to come so that he could ball toss.
But she never came.
And spend the day with her. Yeah. She never came, yes, because she was prepping for their wedding, we come to know. And so I don't know if I was thinking that maybe it is Nutseng's fault because maybe he was leading her on. But I was thinking that maybe she's just one of those girls who took friendly gestures as flirting. And I was like, because for her to, okay, so she turned into a dove, right? A white dove. And then hung herself for him to see. In the story, she wasn't actually her human body hanging.
Yes.
It was a dove, right? Okay, yeah, so I feel that was kind of manipulative. But then I didn't understand how Nushongnusi knew that it was a trap, because how she was telling him, don't touch that or don't talk about it.
I was talking to Mom about it, right? And she was like, if you considered this as a spirit, back in those days where Nutseng went to the field and he started sighing. He started sighing, and then he started talking about, my cow is hungry, he can eat, but I'm so hungry and my wife is not here to feed me, so I should go home. But then Mom was like, during those time, they tell people not to sigh. When they're out in the wilderness, because spirits can hear you. Because the moment he sighed, she found him and she hanged right in front of him to see. He's considered like, oh, she was a spirit. And at the moment she was looking for him, and the moment he sighed, the spirit found him. So to me, if I think about that way, I was like, oh, that's kind of scary.
For her to be a being that comes from the sky, are they illuminating that that they are mystical beings, or is it kind of symbolism of them being just very rich people?
Yeah, I think it can go both ways, right? If you really look at the story, they can be considered mystical beings if you take it literally. But if you think of the symbolic meaning, then you can say that probably rich people who can just do whatever they want. And she's probably from a rich family, and he's already, going to marry another woman, but they force him to marry her instead. But then we still have to consider the whole her dying part and bring her back to life. And then they'll be like, okay, symbolically, I don't know how we can translate that.
I do remember that I really liked this story when Mom told us when we were younger. I do remember that it was one of my favorites. But I didn't like Nu Shou Nung Si either. I didn't like either of the girls. I felt like Nu Shou Nung Si just, I don't know.
She's smart. She knows like, okay, we shouldn't be like talking about this. And she knows that not to trust the brothers because they're a little suspicious. But I feel like for her to have a lack of communication with her, quote, fiance.
Yeah, I think that was my problem. I don't think I liked that she lied. Oh, he's not here. He lives in the other house. But other than that, I think it was because she was protecting him. So I guess I could give her that pass.
When I was a child, I did not like Zamatzia because to me, she was supposed to be the villain, right? Even now, the story translates her to be a villain. But now that I'm older, I realize like she's not really a villain. I feel like she's just a young, innocent, kind of dumb girl who fell in love too quick and and she's just like, I need this man no matter what. It's a little sad, especially with how they said that, she has that sickness too. And, a lot of those girls do exist. And to think that they don't deserve love or anything like that, or because they don't have that beauty standard makes them the villain. And to me, it just makes me a little sad.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like there's a lot of other stories that we might cover where the antagonist has a physical appearance that's not flattering, and that is what paints them
just
as
because
the antagonist. Yes, like for Zomatsuya, for the whole story, I didn't think that her having the goiter really changes the story. Like, we could have named her, like, let's say A, or Abby or whatever, and it would not change the moral or the story or the storyline at all, other than just, hey, she's a girl and she has this physical attribute about her.
Do you know who I think the villains are? It's Nu Shou Nung Si's friends, because Nu Shou Nung Si is probably like, hey, you go tell him that I'm not going to be here today so that he doesn't wait for me. But they go and they were like, oh, we're having so much fun. We don't have to go look for him. We'll just tell him at the end of the day.
I know. I was like, what kind of friends are you guys? Or maybe he should just like, oh, she's not here. Okay, then let's go home.
Yeah.
Because my fiance is not here.
One thing that I do like about Hmong folklores is the poems that they use. Even when he was sighing, the poem that he used, that one was really nice. And especially the poem from the flute when he was playing. I think that it's very catching. And when you translate it to English, it does kind of make sense a little bit too. And it's the way the rhyming goes and the scheme of the poem. I feel like it really resonates with the Hmong folklore aspect.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I do like that. A lot of Hmong folklore has that kind of rhyming scheme where they sheng ma. Like sheng is like singing it out, and it's like a poem that just flows with whatever they're feeling.
We as innocent girls, we don't know that guy is just being nice when they're being nice, and then they give us hope, and in the end we just hurt ourselves. It's not their fault, right? Because they're just being a nice person, but it's our fault for taking their their kindness and transferring that into like that we think that they like us or something.
It's like an example of being friend zoned.
That could be it. Friend zone.
Because he didn't want to do anything else with her, just be friends. She was just the friend of the moment.
We can kind of relate to this in like our modern dating too. Because it's just like me when I was younger. I was young and naive. And I'll have like guys that come talk to me and they're so nice to me. And I was like, oh, this guy, does he like me? Or do you feel more shit to learn? It gives you hope. And then in the end, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
he
it
has a
gives you
girlfriend.
hope.
Oh, he only likes me as a
Oh,
friend. And what are you, more? So to me, I really feel I feel like, oh,
yes.
that's so me. I feel so sad for her.
I did too. I felt really bad for her. And then it kind of changed
Yes.
when she kidnapped him.
Yes. That one, I feel like she did went a little too far. To me, when I was imagining that, I was a little scared for it. And saying, when like, oh no, this girl, she looks so familiar. And then she get up and she was smiling at me. She's smiling at me like she's going to come and attack me. I'll be scared too if that happens.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she was a villain. But once she takes him, that's when she was a villain because he was already taken. I realized that the women are a lot smarter than the guys. Because he goes and he was like, hey, wife, this happened to me. This suspicious thing happened to me. There was a white dove. She hung herself. For some reason, I just can't stop crying. And he just talked as though he doesn't know what's going on. But the wife's like, that sounds suspicious. That's something that we might not want to talk about. I feel like a lot of stories, usually the wife are the ones like, I don't think we're supposed to be talking about this stuff. But the guys are just so nonchalant. And I feel like he's kind of, even though his name means that he's smart and wise, I feel like Nutsin's a little dumb.
His actions were the opposite.
Yeah,
of
to me,
his
I was
name.
like, why are you telling these guys that you're Nutsin? Just tell them that you're not and for them to go look somewhere else, you know? Because you literally saw them as butterflies and then they turned into humans.
Oh, so he actually saw them as butterflies?
Yes, he saw them as butterflies and then did turn into humans, right? If I see that, I'll be like, that's suspicious. They're looking for me. I am not telling, right? But he's like, oh, even after his wife came, like, don't tell them. Don't you tell them. He still goes, oh yeah, I am he.
That's me. Maybe his curiosity got the best of him.
The story did end with them being, living happily ever after.
I think it was a pretty good story.
Yeah.
Well, friends, we have come to the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again for episode 4. Please stay tuned as we continue our folklore series and we go into longer epic stories. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again.